My name is Janet Bowling and my dad's name was Frank Richard Purdy. He joined the RAF right at the beginning of the war, and at one point early on in the war he was on a ship being transported to Java. The ship was torpedoed by the Japanese and he came up onto deck with his very close friend Richard. One jumped one way and my dad jumped the other way, and his friend drowned, but my dad was saved. But because of that, he was then taken prisoner of war by the Japanese. He went to several prisoner of war camps, and he finished up in Changi Jail. He did talk about certain things, and yes, he did tell us that story, I think because his friend Richard was so close to him, and my dad did go and see his parents at the end of the war, and he did tell us things that happened in Changi Jail. The fact that my dad was one of the people that had to share out the food. I don't know why he was chosen, but he was. And he said, despite the fact that they were all friends, all the prisoners were friends, they watched him closely every time there was any food to share out to make sure that he did it fairly, because there was so little food to have anyway. The Bible is my story, really. This is the story that we have taken with us as a family. So his parents, my grandparents, gave this little Bible to him when he joined the RAF at the beginning of the war. So it's got a message in there from my grandparents. And then here is where my dad wrote when he was captured. So he was captured on the 23rd of March, 1942, which was his 21st birthday. And there it has the Japanese stamp in it. And the whole Bible has lots and lots of underlinings in red. So he obviously read the Bible throughout the war. But the story is that one day in Changi Jail, the Japanese soldiers decided for some reason that they were going to ask all the prisoners to bring their personal belongings, photographs, papers, anything, books, and put them on bonfire. And they made two of the prisoners light the bonfire, so basically to burn all their friends' belongings. But one of the two prisoners saw this Bible. A lot of people think that a Bible is a special book, and so one of the two prisoners kicked the Bible off the bonfire into the grass to hide it. And if he'd been found out doing that, he would have been shot. So he risked his life to save this Bible. Sometime later, a whispered message went round the camp, because my dad's number is in the front of the Bible. Would prisoner number so-and-so meet at a certain time at night? And he got his Bible back, and he managed then to keep it hidden for the rest of the war. All the things that are underlined in red, my dad did underline during the war. So he obviously found reading the Bible and underlining things a comfort. I know that the Bible was important to him because he had been brought up in a Methodist church and Methodist family. It's important to me because as a Christian, I think it's a special book. And so yes, to have kept this Bible is really amazing. I have told this story to a lot of school children, yes. I was a teacher, so I was in the schools when children were learning about the Second World War, and I offered to tell the story of my dad's Bible. The children have always been interested, and they would ask questions after. It's something that we've still got that belonged to my dad. It's something that amazingly survived the war. But when I've told the story in school, I always finish by going on a few years, because when my mum and dad were in their 40s, they went to Changi Jail, and there was a short service, and my dad read from the Bible in that little service. And then my dad shook hands with the Japanese people that were there, and he said that he forgave them. And I always finish my story with that because I think that's important. I think it was hard, yeah, because he did suffer. He had a good life after the war, but he did suffer stomach problems and things for a long time after the war. But he did forgive them because he said that it was wartime, that's what they had to do, that's what they'd been trained to do. He didn't take it personally, no. So, my grandparents had had a telegram to say that Frank Richard Purdy was missing, believed dead. And my grandpa had, I think it was probably a monthly or a quarterly magazine from the government sent, and they would go through it page by page just to see if my dad's name was in it, if they could find out any information. And they didn't find out any information until right at the end of the war, when there was a service held in Changi Jail, and the Bishop of Birmingham went across, and the Bishop of Singapore took part as well. And they had this service to release the prisoners. And this photograph appeared in the magazine. And my dad is in the corner up here playing the harmonium. And despite all those years and the fact that he had lost so much weight, my grandma is reported to have said, "That's our Frank." And somebody in the family had that part of the photograph enlarged so that we could see him properly. But she recognised him just from seeing this little photograph. Yes, I do think it's important just to let people know what happened, and maybe to move on, but just so that the details are kept on record. I think that's important. It's part of history. But I do think that if you can forgive, and my dad did, and that perhaps helped him to then move on with his life.